In this Blender tutorial, we're going to be creating this office desk and this office chair. Now, if you'd like to help support me and also download the project files, then you can do that over on my Gumroad and Patreon with the links in the video description. Huge thank you to this video's sponsor, Sketchfab. Upload, buy, and sell 3D models and assets on Sketchfab. One of my favorite features of Sketchfab is that you can upload and preview your 3D models in your browser and even view them on a phone or tablet. Sketchfab also has a 3D model store where you can purchase assets for your 3D work. You can also apply to become a seller on the platform. Be sure to check out Sketchfab with the links in the description. And then before we jump into Blender, I did want to show you the different textures that I'm going to be using. So for the wood texture, I'm going to be using this Wood 023 on cc0textures.com. I'll leave a link in the video description if you'd like to download the same texture that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to be downloading the 4K JPEG. And then for the fabric texture on the chair, I'm going to be using this Fabric 012, again on cc0textures.com. And because the fabric texture is going to be scaled so small, I'm just going to be downloading the 2K JPEG. And then to give us some really realistic lighting, I'm going to be using this Empty Warehouse 01, and this is on HDRI Haven. So this is a really awesome HDRI, and I really like the lighting that it gives to the scene. So I'm just going to be downloading the 1K version, and then we'll add that into the world to give us some nice realistic lighting. Alright, so here we are in Blender. Now if you'd like to see my screencast keys, they're going to be right down here in the corner so that you can see what buttons I'm pressing while we're creating this scene. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is get rid of the timeline because we're not going to be doing any animation, so I don't need the timeline. So to get rid of the timeline, I'm just going to hover my mouse right over here. You can see there's that little crosshair. I'm going to click, drag up, and then drag down, and you can see now that arrow is pointing down, and then we can let go and that'll close the timeline. Okay, so we actually are going to use the default cube, so I'm just going to select the camera and delete it, and then select the lamp and delete it. So I'm just pressing X to delete the objects. Alright, so we're going to start off by modeling the top of the table, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to select the cube, tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press S to scale, and then click Z to go on the Z axis, and we're just going to scale it down. So just scale it down to something around there. I'm going to press 1 on the number pad to go to front view so we can kind of see this on side view. And then what I'm going to do is cut it in half and add a mirror modifier so that we don't have to model both sides of the table. We can just model one side of the table and it's going to be mirrored over. So to add a loop cut, you can press Ctrl R. And actually, you don't need to be in side view or front view. Just press Ctrl R to add a loop cut, and then I'm just going to click, and then I'm going to left click just to place it back in its original position. So now we have a loop cut going right through here. So now I want to delete this side and then mirror it over. So I'm going to press 3 to go to the face select, or just click right up here, and then I'm going to select this face. Then I can press X to delete, and I'm going to click on vertices. So that way half of the cube is deleted. So now we just have that half side. So now we just need to add the mirror modifier to mirror it over. So I'm going to click right down here to go to the modifiers, and I'm just going to click on add modifier, and we're going to add the mirror modifier. And then I'm going to turn on the clipping right here. And what the clipping does is it makes it so that when you tab into edit mode and press A to select everything and then press G to grab and kind of pull it out, it's going to be merged together. If you have the clipping turned off and you pull it out, you can see that now these pieces aren't merged together where they're connected in the middle. So just turn on clipping and then they'll be merged together. All right, so I'm going to go to side view again, and I'm going to press G to grab and kind of pull it out, and then click and hold down with my middle mouse wheel and then let go, and that'll constrain it to the X axis. And we're just going to make it a bit bigger. Now, if you zoom out here, you can see that there are some grids. So there is one grid, there's another. What I want to do is I want to make it so it's about 4 grids wide and then 4 grids wide on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just going to press G to grab, click and hold with my middle mouse wheel to constrain it to the X axis, and then just pull it out to about 4 grids wide. So just like that. It doesn't have to be exactly like that, but I've found that that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to press 7 on the number pad to go to top view, and I'm going to scale it out this way. And I want it to be scaled about 4 grids long, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll press S to scale, click and hold with my middle mouse wheel to constrain it to the Y axis, and then let go, and I can just bring it out to about that big. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, about that size. And there we go. Now I can tab back into object mode. All right, now I want to add a bevel to this object because if you zoom up really close, it's really sharp here, and that's not realistic to the real world. Everything in the real world has just a little bit of a bevel, and so if we add a bevel, it'll just add a little bit of a shine on the side of the object and make it look a lot more realistic. So to add a bevel, I'm just going to add the Bevel Modifier. So I'm going to click on Add Modifier, and then I'm going to click on Bevel right up here under Generate. It's the second one, Bevel. Now you can see that we add it right now, it's way too big. So let's just kind of zoom in here and move over to an edge. Now, if you turn the amount down, you can see the bevel is going to get a lot smaller. Now, to make your movements more sensitive while you're dragging this amount, you can hold down the Shift key, and that'll make your movements a lot more sensitive. And just scale it down, make it pretty small. I'm going to do somewhere around 0.009, or maybe just like 0.01. There we go. Okay. And then the segments, I'm going to turn this up to 5. And you can see that when I turn up the segments, it's going to add more geometry to that. So I'm just going to turn it up to 5 so that it has a lot more detail. And then we can shade this object smooth. Now I use the right click select. You're probably using left click select. I use the right click select. So I hit the W key and then click on shade smooth, but you can just hit the left click and then click on shade smooth. You can also just go object and then click on shade smooth right there. Okay, so now that object is shaded smooth, and you can see in the matte cap preview, just the preview in the viewport, you can see that there's a little shine right there, and that's really good. That's really going to help to make the object look more realistic. All right, let's save our file so that if Blender crashes, we don't lose anything. So let's just go File and then click on Save As. And just go to somewhere on your computer where you want to save the file. I'm just going to save it as officetutorial.blend and then just click on Save As. And then as we're working, you can just press Control S and then it's going to save the file. All right, now we're going to have 2 shelves on both sides. So if you tab into edit mode, we're going to have a shelf over here and then it'll be mirrored over to the other side. So let's just select this bottom face right here, and then I'll press 1 to go to front view. Now I want to duplicate this so that I can make the piece for the drawers right down here. But if I just press Shift D right now and duplicate it, you can see that we have the clipping turned on, so it's going to be merged together and we can't pull it apart. So I'm just going to press Control Z to undo that. I'm just going to turn the clipping off, press Shift D to duplicate, and then just click on Z, bring it down. And then if I just go back into front view, I can press S to scale, click with my middle mouse wheel so that it constrains it to the x-axis and just scale it down a little bit, and then just click to place that. So now that these are separate, I can turn back on the clipping and then the clipping will work, but now this is separate so we can kind of move it apart. All right, so let's press 1 again to go to front view, and I'm going to press G and move this over and just kind of bring it right up here. Just zoom in, and I'm just going to put it right next to the top part of our desk. Okay, and then I'm going to go right down here. I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select. You can also just click on this button, and I want to only select these 2. So I'm going to click on this, hold down the Shift key, click on this one. We'll press 1 on the number pad to go back to front view, and I want to make this about 2 grids long. So you can see 1 grid, 2 grids. So right now it's a little bit too long, so I'll just press G to grab, click and hold with my middle mouse wheel, and then let go when it's constrained to the x-axis, and just make it about 2 grids long. Okay, that's good. That's what I want. So now I'll press 3 or click right up here to go to the face select. I'll just select this face. Again, let's go to front view, and I'll press E and extrude this down. So we're extruding out that face, and now it's basically like a cube. And I want to extrude this down about 4 grids long. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So about here. Okay, just click to place that. Now you can see that this is a little bit going above the center of the world, and I want to make that a little bit smaller because I don't want the table to be quite that high. I want it to be a little bit lower. So I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select. Z, hold down the Z key, move your mouse over to go into wireframe, and then let go, and that'll go into wireframe. We can now press A to deselect everything, press B and just box select the top part of the desk. Then just kind of zoom in here. I'm holding down the Shift key to pan around, and then scrolling with my middle mouse to zoom in. Now I can press G to grab, click and hold with my middle mouse wheel, and then let go, and just bring it right there, right underneath that red line. So this is what we have. Press Control S again to save the project. So now what I need to do is I need to extrude in a area here so that we can fit in those drawers. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, press 3 to go to the face select and just select this face. I can now press I, and I is going to inset the face. So it's going to inset it and put a face in that face. So there's a face within a face. And then just scale it down a little bit, probably about there. You can also hold down the shift key to make your movements more sensitive, and then just click to place that. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to press 3 now, 3 on the number pad to go to side view, and I'll press Z and move my mouse over and then let go to go into wireframe. So I want to extrude this back so that we have a hollow area that we can put the drawers in. So I'll press E to extrude, and it's already bringing it over on the Z axis. If it hasn't done that, you can just press Z, bring it over on the Z axis, and I'm just going to bring it back to about there. I think that's pretty good. And then also I think this tabletop right here, I think this is a little bit thick. So I'm going to select this top face and then just press G and Z, bring it down to make it a little bit thinner. Okay, that looks better. All right, so we have a hole here to put our drawers in, but we need to add some pieces in between the drawers because the drawers need something to kind of sit on inside there because they're going to be stacked up on top of each other. So I'm just going to select the top face or the bottom face, whichever you want to do. And then I'll press Shift D and then click and hold with your middle mouse wheel and just constrain it to the Z axis. And then just bring it down, click to place that. Let's press 1 to go to front view, and press G and Z, bring it down, and just make this so that it's about even. So you can kind of see how big this is. It doesn't have to be exactly even. And some drawers, I found what they'll do is some drawers, like the smaller drawers, will be smaller, and then as they go down, they'll get bigger and bigger, just like a little bit. So if you wanted to do that, maybe have this a smaller drawer, and then maybe have a bigger drawer, you could do that. And you could also make 4 drawers. I'm going to be making 3 drawers, but if you want to make more or less, you could do whatever you want to do. Okay, so now that that's where I want, I'm going to give it some thickness. So I'm going to press E to extrude and then just click to place that. Okay. Let's go to front view and see how that is. I kind of want the thickness to be the same as this, so however thick that is, kind of about there. Okay, that's good. So now we need to duplicate this over to make another one. And if you want to make more drawers, you can have more open areas. So to select this entire object, what you can do is just hover your mouse over it and then press the L key. And that's going to select all of the linked vertices. So we now have this entire object selected. Let's go back to front view. And I'm going to press Shift D, click and hold with your middle mouse wheel and then let go to constrain it to the Z axis, and then just bring it down. Try to make them pretty even. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. So now I need to make some drawers. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to tab into edit mode here, and I'm going to just select this face. I can just select this one. I'm going to press Shift D, click with my middle mouse, bring it down. And then we want to scale it up, of course, because that's really thin. So let's press S and then Z, just bring that up. Okay, bring it down a little bit, and then let's go to front view by pressing 1 on the number pad. Just kind of scale it up and just kind of fit it into place. All right, so now let's extrude this back into the shelf. So let's press 3 to go to side view, Z, move your mouse over and let go to go into wireframe, and we need to extrude this drawer back in. So I'm going to press E to extrude, just bring it all the way back right there, and then just click to place that. Okay. Now this drawer, the front face, I want to make this a little bit thicker, so I want to bring it out a little bit. So I'm going to press G to grab, click with my middle mouse to constrain it on the Y axis, just pull it out a little bit, and then just click to place that. Okay, now you can see that something is wrong with the shading. This is kind of a light color and this is kind of dark. That's because we need to flip the normals. So I'm going to tab into edit mode and just double tap A to make sure everything is selected. And then the shortcut key for flipping the normals or recalculating the normals is Shift N. So when you press Shift N, you can see here's the recalculate normals right behind me, but it flips the normals and kind of fixes it. So now the shading looks correct. All right, so that drawer is looking pretty good, but we need to extrude down into the drawer so that there's actually some room in the drawer. So tab back into edit mode. I'm just going to press A to deselect everything, and I need to hide this top piece. So move your mouse over this and press L to select the top piece, and then I'll press H to hide it. Now I can select this, and if you're not using the face select, you can click right up here or press 3 on your keyboard. All right, so now I'm going to press I to inset this face and just kind of bring it down a little bit. Make it whatever thickness you want. Okay, let's go to front view by pressing 1 on the number pad. I'm going to press Z, move my mouse over, and then let go to go into wireframe. And then we need to extrude this down so that the drawer has an open area. So I'm going to press E to extrude. bring that way down. And then I want the thickness of this right here to be about the same thickness up and down. You can hold down the shift key to make your movements more sensitive and then just click to place that. Okay, let's go back into solid view, and that looks pretty good. So we now have an empty spot in our drawer so we can actually like put things in the drawer. So if you press Alt H now, that's going to unhide that object that we hid. And there we go. You can see when it was hidden, if you tab into object mode, you can see the vertices that are hidden. But when you tab into edit mode, we hid them, so they're hidden. But if you press Alt H, that'll unhide the object. So H if you want to hide things, then Alt H if you want to unhide them. All right, so there we go. So now we just need to duplicate these drawers. So let's go 1 for front view. Again, tab into edit mode, A to deselect everything. And then I want to just select this drawer. So again, press L and that'll select all the linked vertices. And then I can press Shift D, click and hold with your middle mouse, constrain it to the Z axis, just kind of bring it up. Okay, and if there's a little bit of room in here, if you wanted to, you could select this and kind of bring it down, or you could just scale the drawer up. So I'm just going to press S and Z, scale the drawer up just a little bit, and then just move it up a little bit. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay, back to front view, tab into edit mode, and I need to press L again to select all the linked vertices, and then I'll press Shift D, click with your middle mouse wheel, bring it up. Okay, and you can see this drawer is smaller, so I'm totally fine with this. Actually, there are quite a bit of like drawers where they'll do that. They'll have the top drawers smaller, and then they'll get bigger as they go down, so I'm totally fine with that. If you want to adjust this, you can though. I'm going to press Z and move my mouse over to go into wireframe. I'll press 1 to go to the vertex select, and then I want to bring this top part down, but I don't want to bring the bottom part down. So I needed to deselect the bottom part. So to deselect it, I'm going to press B for the box select, and then I'm going to click and hold down with my middle mouse wheel and drag out this box. And then when I let go, everything that was in the box is going to be deselected. So now you can see that we just have the top part selected. So I can now press G to grab, Z on the Z axis, and just bring that down into place. All right, go back into object mode. You can press Z and move your mouse over to go back into solid view. And there we go, we have our finished drawers. Let's press Control S again to save our project. So now we actually need to have some handles to pull the drawers out. So let's go ahead and do that. So before I add a new object, I want to press Shift C, and what Shift C will do is it'll center that 3D cursor into the center of the scene. So if it got moved, you can just press Shift C and that'll go back to the center. I'm now going to press Shift A. And to add those handles, I'm going to add a cylinder. And you can see that because our 3D cursor was in the center of the scene, it added the cylinder right there, because wherever the 3D cursor is, that's where the objects are going to be added. Now, before you move this cylinder, click right here to the cylinder settings right behind me, and you can see that there is this vertice count. Now, right now, 32, that's kind of high. We don't really need it to be that high. So on the vertices here, I'm just going to change this to like 12. And then just close this. So now we have a lot lower geometry. All right, so let's tab into edit mode now. And why I'm tabbing into edit mode before I'm moving this down is because I want to add a mirror modifier. And if I kind of move this down and then add the mirror modifier, you can see that the origin point of the object, which is that little orange thing, the origin point is in the very center of our scene. So you can see there is the X line, which is the red, and then there is the Y axes, and that is the green one right here. We want to mirror it over to the other side so that there are handles for all of these drawers. So if I tab into edit mode and then move it over and then tab back into object mode, you can see that that origin point is still in the center there. So when we add the mirror modifier, it's going to mirror it over to the other side. So let's do that. Let's click on add modifier, and then just add the mirror modifier, and there we go. Now it's mirrored it over to the other side. Now, if for some reason you want to add a mirror modifier and the origin point isn't in the center, what you can do is you can click on the mirror object and just click on an object that's in the very center of the scene, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to mirror it over to the other side. Like if I press Shift A, add a cube, and then I want to add the mirror modifier, you can see because the origin point is in the center there, the center of the cube is going to be right here. But if you want to mirror it over to the other side of our desk, you can just click on the mirror object, click on the little eyedropper, and then click on that. And now you can see that it's going to be mirrored over. So that's just a little tip. Okay, so let's click back on this. We're going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to press 1 to go to front view. And we need to scale this down. So I'm going to press S to scale. Scale that down, okay. Okay, just pan over here and zoom in. I'm gonna press R to rotate. I'm gonna type in 90 and then enter. So 90 will tell it to rotate by 90 degrees, 90, and then enter. So now it's just rotated sideways. Okay, so I'm gonna press G to grab, bring this over kind of in the center there. We'll scale it down a little bit more, and then I need to scale it so it's longer. So I'll press S to scale, click with my middle mouse wheel, and then let go when it's constrained on the X-axis. Just scale that up and then click to place that. Okay. Just kind of move it over into the center of the drawer, or if you wanted to, you could have it like a little bit higher. I think I'm going to do that. Just have the handle like a little bit higher. If you wanted to, you could have the handle right up here. I'm just going to have the handle on the drawers just a little bit higher up than the center. So I need to now move it in. So I'll press 7 on the number pad for top view, G to grab, click with your middle mouse and just bring that over. Okay. And then I need to add something to have it going into the drawer to be connected. So I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to add a cube. And then it added the cube right here. I'm just going to press G and move it over. S and scale it down. And then what I can do is I can press period on the number pad and that'll hop us over to whatever's selected. Just press G to grab, S to scale, and we're just going to stick it right there. You can kind of go to the top view, just kind of bring it in, scale it down a little bit. Okay, just like that. Okay, so now I want to pull that part in. So I'm just going to press 3 to go to face select and just select that face. And then I can press G to grab, click with my middle mouse wheel, let go, and just drag that inside the drawer there. Okay, so now I want to duplicate that over to the other side. So again, I'm going to press L with my mouse hovered over that, and that's going to select all the linked vertices. Then I can press Shift D, click and hold with my middle mouse, and just bring that over. And I'm just going to eyeball this. I don't really think it matters that much. If you just eyeball it and just kind of get this size the same as that size, you're not even going to notice anything, just as long as it looks close enough. All right, and that is looking good. So this object is really sharp right now, so let's shade this smooth. So I'm just going to shade the object smooth. Now when we shade it smooth, because there's so little topology, you can see that it kind of smooshes everything. It kind of makes this almost look circular sort of, and there's going to be some weird shading issues. You can kind of see how it's kind of stretched and the color looks a little bit weird. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm just going to do a few things. I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select and just alt select this loop. So what you do is you hold down the alt key and then you click right here, and that's going to select the entire loop all the way around. So now what I can do to add more geometry to kind of fix those shading issues is I can press Control B to add a bevel. So just add a bevel, kind of pull that out, and then click to place that. And you can see now those shading issues are fixed, and it actually kind of looks like the shape that it actually is. So let's do that for the other side. Just go over here, tab into edit mode. I'm going to hold down the Alt key as I select this loop, and then press Control B. Just bring that bevel out a little bit, and then click to place that. Okay, and then I want to do basically the same thing for these other square pieces. So I'm gonna just press A to deselect everything. Then I'll press L, move my mouse over here and press L again so that we select all the linked vertices. And then I want to add bevels to these as well. So I'll just press Control B again, just bring that out just a little bit, and then just click to place that. There we go. So now that shading, those shading issues aren't there, and it actually looks pretty nice. Okay, so now I want to duplicate these and kind of put them up here. So I'm going to just select this, go back into edit mode by pressing tab, and then I will double tap A to make sure everything's selected. Let's go to front view by pressing 1 on the number pad for front view, and then we just need to duplicate these and move them up. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, click with my middle mouse, bring that up to about there, wherever you want to place it, click to place that, and then again, Shift D, click with my middle mouse wheel, bring that up, and then click to place that. All right. So now if we tab back into object mode, we can check out our desk, looking pretty cool. I just want to add one more thing. Usually with desks like this, they're going to have some sort of support here on the back to kind of support it so it doesn't like get cracked or fall apart. It's just going to make it a bit more strong. So they usually have a piece of wood right here on the back. So I'm going to tab into edit mode and just do that. Oh, I don't want to tab into edit mode on this object. Let's tab back into object mode and just select the top face, and then we'll tab into edit mode. Okay, so I just want to select this back face and kind of duplicate it and then make a little piece of wood back there. So I'm going to press 3 to go to the face select, or just click right up here. We're just going to select this face. And then I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, click and hold with my middle mouse wheel, and then let go. And if we click on 1 on the number pad, we can kind of see what this is looking like. Let's just zoom out. So I want to make this about 2 grids tall. So 1, 2. So I'm just going to press S to scale, click with my middle mouse, bring that up. Okay, and then I can press G and Z, bring that up there. And if I just go right over here, you can kind of see what this is looking like. So we have this kind of glitchy thing here. You can see there's kind of glitches, and that's because this plane is the same point as this plane. Blender doesn't really know what face to show. So let's just press G to grab, and then click and hold with your middle mouse, bring it on the Y-axis, and just bring it in a tiny bit, just so that that's in there. All right, so now let's press 1 on the number pad to go to the vertex mode, and then Z, move your mouse over, let go, and go into wireframe. And then inside here, we have some more vertices. I want to just bring this out here, so it kind of ends right there. So I'm going to press B, click and hold with my middle mouse wheel, and just select that whole thing, and then let go, and that's going to deselect whatever was in the box. Okay, so now I can press G to grab, click with my middle mouse, and bring it over on the X-axis. Let me just move up here. G to grab, click over, just bring that over like that. And then you can just zoom way in and move that over so that it's just barely touching that. Okay, so now that we have that set up, let's press 1 on the number pad again, and we can see that the grid is ending right down here, so I want to make it a little bit longer. So I'm just going to select this vertice, hold down the Shift key and select this vertice, and then press G to grab, Z on the Z-axis, and just bring that down. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay, now there's not any thickness, so we need to add some thickness. So press 3 to go to the face select, just select this face, and then we need to press E to extrude, and just extrude that out. And I want it to be about the same thickness as this table, so however thick this is, I want that to be about the same. So you can just eyeball it. I think that looks pretty good. Now, again, you can see that we extruded it out the opposite way, so the normals have been flipped. We need to recalculate that. So again, just double tap A to select everything and press Shift N to recalculate the normals, and we can go back into object mode. All right, so the modeling of the table is now finished. So for the final result, I have the drawers, some of the drawers opened up, and so I'm actually going to show you how to make it really easy to open up those drawers, and I'm also going to show you how to do some very basic rigging using object constraints. We're just going to constrain these drawers so that they can only move back and forth on the Y-axis so that we can pull those drawers out. Now, before we do that, we're going to have to separate these, because if I just click on the drawers, you can see that they're a part of the same object, and then this as well is its own object. What we need to do is actually apply the mirror modifier. So you can just click right here with the table selected, just click right here, and then you can click on apply. The shortcut key is Control A. So you can also just hold your mouse over the mirror modifier and press Control A, and that will apply that modifier. So now let's tab into edit mode, and I'm going to deselect everything and then just press L and just start going down here and pressing L to select all the drawers. So now we want all these to be their own object. So to do that, the shortcut key is P, and P will bring up the separate option, and we want to separate by loose parts because we want each of these drawers to be their own object, and because they're all selected, when we click on loose parts, now we can tab into object mode and just select these, and you can see that each drawer is its own object. So that is exactly what we want. So we want to do the same thing for the handles here. So again, move your mouse over this and press Control A, or you can just click on apply, tab into edit mode. Now for this, we don't want to separate them by loose parts, because if we do that, then these pieces are going to be separate from these pieces. So to separate this properly, we're going to have to go into wireframe, just box select one of these, and then we can press P and separate by selection. Okay, tab into object mode, click on this one, and this is all of them. Now this is its own object, so we need to just make these all their own objects. So tab into edit mode, B for the box select, just select that entire piece, P by selection, tab back into object mode. So now this one and this one are their own objects, so we need to do the same thing, tab into edit mode, B for the box select, just select this, and then P by selection. So this is kind of repetitive, but we only have to do it 3 more times. So tab back into object mode, select this one, tab into edit mode, B for the box select, click and drag, let go, P, separate by selection. Okay, and then just one more time, tab into object mode, select this one, tab into edit mode, just box select that, and then go P and separate by selection. Okay, so now you can see that I can select each object or each handle, and they're all their own object. All right, now when I select a drawer and move it, I'm gonna want the handles to move along with it. So a really easy way to do that is to just select a handle, then hold down the Shift key and select the drawer of the handle, and then press Control P, and Control P is going to bring up the parent settings. I'm gonna click on Object, and so what this does is it parents this object to this object. So now when I press G to grab, it's going to move along with it. So this is the child object and this is the parent object. So the child object can move around by itself, but then when the parent object moves, the child object is going to move along with it, but then the child object can still move around by itself. Now, how I told it to make that the child and that the parent is because I selected this and then shift selected this last. So if you, let's just do that again. Click on this one first and then hold down the Shift keys and then click on this one. So whatever you select last, that one is going to become the parent, and then all of the other objects that you parent it to, those are going to become the child object. So again, Control P, we're going to set parent to object, and now you can see I can press G and move this around, but then this one can move on its own, but then this one will always move along with it when the drawer is being moved. So I'm just going to press Control Z to undo that. We'll do the same thing, so click on this, shift click on this, Control P, set parent to object, click on this one first, then shift and click on this one, Control P, set parent to object, and then click on this one, shift click on this one, Control P, set parent to object, and one more time, select this one, shift select this one, Control P, and then set parent to object. So now we can just move these drawers and the handles are going to be moving along with them. Let's press Control S again to save our project. All right, so now how do you make the drawers so that when you press G to grab, they just move out? Because you could just press G to grab, click with your middle mouse wheel, constrain it to the Y-axis. You could do that and that would be fine. But to make it even easier and quicker to use, if you just press G and it automatically moves out, that would be really helpful. So there's an easy way to do this. If you press N to open up this panel here, and if you go over to the item tab, you can see that there is this transform here. So there's location, rotation, and scale. When you press G to grab, you can see that these are all moving and R to rotate. So whenever an object is rotated or scaled or moved, you can see that there are actually numbers for that movement. So Z-axis, Y-axis, X-axis. You can also see that there is a lock here. So if you lock one of these, it's going to tell it that it can't be moved or it can't be rotated or it can't be scaled. So I just want to move it back and forth on the Y-axis. So to do that, I can just click right here and click right here. So that way it's going to lock the location of the X and the Z. So it can only be moved on the Y. Now when I press G to grab, you can see that I can like move my mouse up and down. It's not going to move. It's only going to move back and forth. So that's really easy. We can just do that for all of them. So I'm just going to click on this one, turn these on, click on this one, turn these on, and then the others. So I'm just selecting each drawer and then locking it on the X and the Z location. Just do that for the last one. And now all of these, I can just move them. I can even move them at once, and they're not going to be moved anywhere else. They're just going to be moved on the Y-axis. So that's really cool, and we can just select these, move them out, and then if for some reason you want to move them back, with them selected, if you press Alt-G, that's going to clear the movement. So G is for grab, so Alt-G is going to clear the transform. So you can see that I'm moving this one out on the Y by -15295. If I want to move that back to its default position, I can press Alt-G, and now you can see it's just hopped back to its original position. Now, for some reason, let's say you're putting this in a scene and you want to move this around, but when you press G to grab, you can see that this is happening. You can't move them because we constrain them. This can be fixed. To fix this, we can just parent these drawers to the table. Now, when I separated the table by loose parts, it separated every single object. So I can just join these back together. That's fine. So what I'm going to do is just select this and then shift select all the other pieces. So all those pieces. And then also I'm going to shift select, holding down the shift key, selecting these two other pieces. So now we have all these pieces selected. So I don't have any of the drawers, but everything else is selected. Then I'm going to press Control J and that'll join them together. So now they're one object. So now what I can do is I can parent these drawers to this, and that way when we move this object, these are going to be moved along with them. So let's just hold down the shift key, just select all the drawers, but don't select the handles, because if you select the handles, that's going to mess up that parent. So we want to leave that parent alone. We just want to parent the drawers to the table. So once you've selected all the drawers, you can lastly hold down the shift key and select the table. Now what you can do is press Ctrl P again, and we're going to set parent to object. So now if you select the table, you can rotate it, you can scale it, you can grab it, and it's not even going to affect the drawers. But then when you select the drawers, you can press G to grab, and you can see that now the drawers are moving. So it's really cool. So if you're doing like an architecture scene and you're doing something like that, you can just, put this in your scene. But then when you press G to grab, the drawers actually move in their correct location. Now, if I want to put this back to its default position, I can press Alt G, and that's going to clear the grab. You can see that I rotated this. So what I need to do is press Alt R, and that's going to clear the rotation. And then if for some reason you scaled it and you want to clear that, you can press Alt S, and that's going to clear the scale. So Alt R will clear the rotation, Alt G will clear the grab or the movement, and Alt S will clear the scale. So now our drawers are back to their default position. Okay, let's just press N to close this panel. All right, so the modeling and rigging of the desk is finished. So let's go ahead and make the desk chair. So I want to model the desk chair in the very center of the scene. So I'm just going to select the desk, press G and click with my middle mouse and just bring it over here. I still want to see it because I want to use it as a guide for the scale of the chair, but I just want to model the chair in the center here. So I'm just going to move that back. Then I'll press Shift C to make sure the 3D cursor is in the center of our scene. And I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to start with a circle. Now, right behind me, if you click on the tab here for the circle settings, the vertices is 32. I want to change this to an 8 because 8's going to work pretty good. What I'm modeling first is that little piece, like that circular piece on the bottom of the chair, underneath the seat, but before the legs of the chair. So let's press 1 on the number pad for top view. And I'm going to press G, click with my middle mouse wheel, and bring this down. I'm going to tab into edit mode now, and press 1 to go to the vertex select, and we will just scale this down. And then I'm going to press G to grab, click with my middle mouse, and bring it down. Now the ground is obviously going to be right here, so I need enough room for the wheels of the chair, and then I'm going to have those chair legs that come out, and then I'm going to have this circular piece come up before I add the seat of the chair. So I need to give enough room for those bottom pieces right down there, and we can totally adjust this later. But for now, I'm just going to have this a little bit lower than these handles right here, so just something around there. Maybe we'll scale this up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to press E to extrude, click and hold with your middle mouse wheel, constrain it to the Z-axis, and then I'll just press S to scale and just scale it down a little bit. Press period on the number pad to zoom into it, and I want to extrude this in a bit, so I'm going to press E to extrude, S to scale. We'll scale that down, and then let's go down here. I'm going to Alt select this loop, so hold down the Alt key, select that, and then I need to press F to fill that. Go back to front view by pressing 1 on the number pad. So I need to make 2 more of these. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, click with my middle mouse wheel, bring it up, and then just press S to scale. And we want to put this one inside the other one. There's kind of these like plastic pieces that kind of go around the beam that hold the chair up. So that's what we're making right now. All right, so that is looking pretty good. I think I might scale this up on the Z-axis a little bit. And then I just need to duplicate this one more time. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. If I go to front view, Shift D to duplicate, click with your middle mouse wheel, and then just scale the whole thing down a little bit. Okay, there we go. So that's looking pretty good. I think I actually want this whole thing to be a little bit higher, and this is a little bit small, so I want to actually make that bigger. So I'm going to press Z to go to wireframe. Just move your mouse over, and then I'm going to box select this, and then I'll just press S to scale and just make that a little bit bigger. Bring it up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to double tap A and press S to scale. Scale the whole thing up a little bit, and then I'm going to press A to deselect everything, B to box select, just select that, and then scale that up just a little bit. Okay, that is looking pretty good. So I now need to smooth this out, so I'm going to press Ctrl 2 to add a subsurf, and that totally destroys the mesh. What we need to do is we need to add loop cuts to tell it where we want to be sharper. So let's tab in edit mode. We need to add a bunch of loop cuts here. So Ctrl R, to add a loop cut, click and then drag over and then click again to place that. Control R again to add a loop cut, click, bring it down, and then click to place that. Control R, bring that up. We're just going to do that for all three of them. So another loop cut there. And then just one more here. So Control R, click, bring that up, and then click to place that. And then Control R, bring that down, and then place that. Okay. And then we can just shade this object smooth. And then you can see right down here, it's kind of round, and I want to make that really sharp. So I'll tab into edit mode, press 3 to go to the face select, and just select this bottom face. And then I'll just press I to inset that and just inset it a little bit. So now it's a lot sharper. Now, right here, you can see this also, I want this to be a little bit more sharp as well. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, Control R, and I'm just going to add a loop cut right here. So you may need to kind of zoom in a little bit. Press Control R, bring a loop cut out there to kind of sharpen that edge. Go up and do the same thing. Control R, add a loop cut right there, bring that out as well. And then right up here on the top one, Control R again, add a loop cut right there. All right. And then also right here, you can kind of see this almost looks like it's going in just slightly. So if you want to just press Control R, add one more loop cut there just to fully sharpen that up. There we go. That looks better. All right. Now, again, I think the normals need to be flipped because for some reason, whenever I'm modeling things, I extrude them out the opposite way. And so it always flips the normals. So I need to recalculate it. So let me tab in edit mode, just select everything and press Shift N. And there we go. Now the normals are recalculated. All right. So that piece is done. Let's go ahead and make those legs, those 5 legs that kind of come out. And then there's going to be some little wheels on the end of those legs. So press Shift C again to make sure your 3D cursor is in the very center there. And then I'm going to press Shift A, go to Mesh, and I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to just bring this down to somewhere around there. Let's tab into edit mode, and I'll just press S to scale this down. Okay, just scale it down somewhere around there. G to grab, we'll bring it down underneath this. And then just go 3 for side view, 3 on the numpad for side view. And I'll just press G to grab, click with my middle mouse, just kind of bring it out a little bit so that there's just a little bit of room right there. Okay, now I can press period on the number pad to zoom into this, and we want to bring this out and down a little bit. So just press 3 for the face select. I'm just going to select this face. We'll go back to 3 for side view. G to grab, and I'm just going to move it forward and down. Now you can see that this grid right here, this is the floor because that's where our desk is. So we need to make sure there's just enough room for our wheel right there. Now it looks like there's not going to be enough room, but that's okay. We will just bring the entire chair up. So I'm just going to scale this down, just scale that face down, and then press G and Z and bring it down a little bit, just so that there is a little slant there. And then this piece is just a little bit smaller. And then this is actually a little too far out. What I want to do is move this back. So G to grab, click with my middle mouse wheel, and I'm going to bring it back so that it's just a little over 2 grids. So here's 1 grid. Here's the next grid. So I just want to have it so that it's not quite 2 grids, just a little over 1.5 grids. So just about that much. Let's go right over here, and I'm just going to select this face and hit X and then delete faces because we don't want a face in there. So basically what I'm doing is I'm modeling the first leg, and then once the first leg is modeled, I'm going to duplicate them and rotate them around, and then we'll fill the insides of the leg to connect them. So with this object still selected, I'm going to press Ctrl 2 to add a subsurf with 2 levels, and then we will shade this object smooth. Now we need to really sharpen this up to make the shape better. So I want to extrude down a little part. So what I'm going to do is press Ctrl R to add a loop cut, click right here, and then just bring it over. And I want to make this be about a perfect square. So just bring that to where you like. And I want this needs to be pretty close to a square. If it's a little off, that's okay, but it needs to be pretty close to a square. Now, if you made it too small like that, what you can do is if it's still selected, you can hold down the Alt key and select that loop. You can double tap G, and that's going to activate the edge slide. So double tap G, and then you can just slide that up until this is about a square, and that looks good for me. So I'm going to press 3 to go to face select, just select this face. I'm going to press 3 for side view again, and I'll press E and just extrude that down. Just extrude it a little bit down, and then I also might just rotate that to kind of make it a little bit straighter. Okay, there we go. So that's looking good. I need to add some loop cuts though. So I'm going to press Ctrl R, add a loop cut right there. Also Ctrl R, click, and then bring that over to add a loop cut there. And then I want to sharpen the bottom area as well, so I'll press Control R, click and drag down, sharpen that up, and then also right here, Control R, click, drag down, and then click to place that. All right. And then I think I'll also press Control R, click and drag up, and then just click to place that. There we go. That's a lot sharper. So now what I want to do is I want to duplicate them around. And when I was looking at reference images of chairs and looking at my own chair, there's usually always 5 legs. I don't know why, but I just observed that there was usually always 5 legs. So let's press 7 to go to top view. I need to duplicate them and rotate them around to make 5 of them. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. Also press Shift C to make sure your 3D cursor is in the very center of your scene. So what I can do is I can click right up here on the pivot point, and I can change this to 3D cursor. So now if I do this right now, you can see it's rotating by the median point. So that's just like the center of where most of the vertices are. Most of the vertices are right down here. So it's kind of rotating right there. So if I change this to 3D cursor and then press R to rotate, you can see now it's rotating wherever that 3D cursor is. So if I press Shift C though, it's going to be in the center there. And so we can rotate this around. So now I can press Shift D and rotate this entire thing around so that there's 5 of them. Now you could just eyeball it. You could press Shift D and then just kind of eyeball it and do that, but this isn't really exact. And so they're going to be off a little bit, and you can see like this one's a bit smaller than this one. So I want to actually make it exact. So what we can do, if I just pull up a calculator right here, I have a calculator, bring it over so you can see it. An entire rotation around is 360 degrees. So if I just click on this and if I just rotate that, that is 360 degrees all the way around. So what I want to do is I want to type in 360, not 630, 360. And then I need to divide this 360 degrees into 5 different pieces because I want there to be 5 different chair legs and I want each of them to be placed with the same amount of space in between them. So 360 degrees, I'm going to divide that by 5. Now, if I calculate that, the answer is 72. So if I take that 360 degrees and divide it into 5 different pieces, there's going to be 72 degrees in each of those 5 pieces. So what I can do is I can press Shift D to duplicate. Then right after that, without clicking on anything, hit R and that'll go to the rotation. So I'm rotating it, and because I have my 3D cursor right in there, it's going to rotate it. Now we did the math. So if we type in 72 and then hit enter, that's going to be the exact amount that we need to rotate it by. So you could just do that again. You could press Shift D, R to rotate, type in 72. But since we've done that once and we all did it within the same action, we can now press Shift R. So Shift R is going to repeat the last action that we just did. So Shift R, and Shift R. And you can see that now that kind of looks like a C star, you know, there's 5 different pieces, but there's exactly 72 degrees in between each piece. So now if we tab into edit mode, this is all geometry. So I can press 1 to go to the vertex select and just zoom in here. So now I just want to merge these together and make a little piece in the middle. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just select these 4 pieces. And then the shortcut key to fill a face is F for face. So now you can see the subdivision surface modifier is kind of smoothing that out. So we need to press Z, go into wireframe. I need to zoom in here and just select these pieces. So just select these pieces right here and then press F to fill that. Let's now rotate over here. Select this one and this one and this and that, and then press F to fill that. So just go along here and select all the 4 vertices and then fill them. Let's go to the next one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, F to fill the face, and those 4, F to fill a face, this one, this one, this one, and this one, F to fill that face, and then this little one down here, these 4, F to fill the face, and then the last one here, these 4, F to fill the face, and then these 4, F to fill the face. So now if we go back into wireframe by pressing Z, moving mouse over and letting go, you can see that now these are merged together and actually looks like a circle. Now, because we have that subsurf modifier on, it's kind of stretching this right here. So to fix this, I'm going to press Control R and then just bring that over. Control R, click, bring that over. Control R, click and bring that over, and then just do that for the other 2. Control R and Control R, click, bring that over, and then click to place that. Okay, let's press Control S again to save our project. Okay, so that is looking really cool. I want to extrude this up and stick it inside here so that these look like they're kind of connected. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, hold down the Alt key, and then click on this loop, and that's going to select the entire loop. You can see if I press G to grab, it's going to select the whole thing. I can now press E to extrude, and then press Z to move it on the Z axis, and just bring that up. Okay, and then E to extrude, S to scale. And you can see that when I'm scaling this, because we still have the pivot point here on the medium point, it's going to scale it on the 3D cursor. So we don't want this. Let's just press Ctrl Z to undo that. I need to click on this and change the pivot point back to median point. So now when I press E and S, you can see that now it's actually scaling in. So we'll just scale that down, and then I'm going to press F to fill that into one face. All right, so let's do the same thing down here. So I'm going to just Alt select this. So holding down the Alt key, you can select loops, and then just press E to extrude, S to scale, and then just click to place that, and then press F to fill the face. Okay, that's looking really good. I want to sharpen up this edge, so I'm going to tab into edit mode, press Ctrl R, add a loop right there, and then press Ctrl R, click, and bring that over to add a loop right there. So now that's really sharp. And then if you want to, you could just press Ctrl R, add a loop there right in the middle, maybe bring it down a little bit to kind of sharpen up that just a little bit. All right, that is looking really good. It looks like this whole thing is a little bit big. So I'm just going to scale this down a little bit and then click on this, maybe scale this up a little bit because I don't want there to be that much room in between these. So just scale that down a little bit, scale this up a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and model those wheels now. So I'm going to press Shift C, make sure my 3D cursor is in the center of the scene, and then I'll press Shift A. And let's add a circle. I'm just going to press G to grab, click with my middle mouse, bring that down to just somewhere around there. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I will press R to rotate, and then type in 9, 0, and enter to rotate it by 90 degrees. And then I can just press S and scale this down. I think I'll tab back into object mode and bring it down a little bit because I want a little bit more space. Okay, tab back into edit mode here. And let's just bring this out a little bit so there's a little bit of space here. And then we can click on Add Modifier. And let's add the Mirror Modifier to mirror that over to the other side. Okay. I'll press F to fill that face, and then I'll press E to extrude. Bring that out, and then E to extrude again, S to scale, and then E to extrude again, and S to scale. So we're just basically just making those little wheels on the bottom of the chair. Let's press 1 on the number pad for front view, and I'm going to scale it down on the X a little bit. And then I think I might scale all of this down just a little bit more. Basically what I want is I want there to be a little bit of overflow. So how long this is, I want it to be just going over a little bit. So maybe somewhere around there, that's pretty good. Okay, and then again, with everything selected, we need to press Shift N to recalculate the normals. Okay, let's press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface, and then we can shade that smooth. All right, so now we need to add some loop cuts. So I'm gonna press Ctrl R. Right here, click and just bring this over to add a loop cut, sharpen that up. And then I want to add a little kind of beam in the center of the wheels. So I will press 3 for face select, just select this face. I'll press Shift D and then press S and just scale that down. And then we can just press G, click with your middle mouse wheel, and just bring it inside that wheel a little bit. I can now press E to extrude, and we'll just push these together. Now we need to turn the clipping on the mirror, so turn that on. And now when you press G, click with your mouse wheel and bring it back, and then click, you can see that now that's merged that together. Now we have a problem here. You can see there's kind of some shading issues, and this is because there is a face inside that, and we don't want that because now those two faces are kind of merged together. So I'm going to press X, but if I click on vertices, it's going to delete the vertices as well. So I need to just click on faces, and now it's only going to delete that face. And now that looks good. Now we're not really going to see this face in here, so I can just select it and then press X and delete faces. And now we don't need to add loop cuts there. It just looks good just like that. Now again, looking at reference photos and also looking at my own chair, there seems to be kind of like a protector, kind of a plastic piece going over the top of the wheels. So let's go ahead and make that. So I'm actually just going to select this face. We'll press 3 for side view, and then I can press Z and move my mouse over to go into wireframe, and I can press Shift D now and duplicate that and just bring it up here. And then I think I'll rotate it, bring it down So it's kind of going down here. Just kind of bring it in. And then once I have that in place, I'll press E to extrude and bring it back in. Okay, let's just go out there, see how that's looking. I need to select this face right here, G to grab, click with my middle mouse, bring that out and thicken it up. But actually I don't want it to be that wide, just a little bit lower, just kind of like about that big. Now I can select this face right here. We'll press 3 again for the side view, and I can press E to extrude, R to rotate, and G to grab. And we're basically just going to make it go all the way around. One other thing you can do is to hold down the Control key and then click, and that actually might be easier. If you just hold down the Control key and click, then you can just move that all around. You could just manually move it and then press E to extrude, R to rotate, G to grab. Okay, and just bring that all the way through there, all the way down, and just stick it right there so that's about the same height as that one. Okay, let's go back out and just see how that's looking. Again, I need to select everything and press Shift-N to recalculate the normals. And then we need to add some loop cuts because this is kind of smooth right here. So I'm going to press Control-R, click, and then just bring that over, and then click to place that. Okay, that's good. Let's press Control-R, click and drag down to add a loop cut there, and then right back over here we'll do the same thing. So Control-R, click and drag down and let go. Okay, there we go. So now we have that kind of protective piece over the wheels, and it looks like, I don't know if this happened for you, but there was a loop cut. One of the pieces, you can see that there's kind of some extra space there. So I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select and just hold down the Alt key and select this. We'll press 3 for side view, and then I can just press G, bring that in, and then click to place that. Okay, that looks good. All right, so now I want to have a piece coming up, and then that piece is going to be connected onto the chair leg. So to add that piece, we're going to need to apply the mirror modifier so that we can add that. So just select the wheel and then press Control-A to apply the mirror. So now what we can do is press Shift-C to make sure the 3D cursor is in the center there. I'm going to tab into edit mode and then press Shift-A, and in edit mode of the wheel, we're going to add a circle. I can now press G and Z, bring it down, and then just click to place it and S and scale that down. And then I can press period on the number pad to zoom over to it. Okay, S and scale that in, just scale it inside the circle there, and then I can press E to extrude, Z on the Z axis, and just bring that up. That's good. And then once again, I need to select everything and press Shift-N to recalculate the normals. And then let's just shade the object smooth to shade that new piece there. And then if I tab back into edit mode, you can see that this piece right here is kind of in the center. I want to actually push it back a little bit because I've noticed that with chairs, these type of chairs, that seems to be the case. So I'm going to hover my mouse over one of these vertices and press L to select the linked vertices. Then I can press G, click with my middle mouse, bring it over, and then press G and Z and just push that down in there. There we go. So now we have kind of this front piece and then the back. Now, when I rotate this, I'm going to want to have it rotate on this piece because that's actually the pivot of the object. But you can see that the object origin is kind of in the center of the wheel, so it's not in the center of this actual piece. So I want to change it so that then when we rotate this, it's actually going to be rotating from this circular piece. So to do that, we'll tab into edit mode and just Alt select this loop right here. That's fine. And then we can press Shift S, and when we press Shift S, this pie menu is going to come up. We want to move our mouse down and click on cursor to selected because we want our 3D cursor to go to the center of whatever's selected. So if we click on that, now our 3D cursor is right in the center there. Let's tab back into object mode. And now what I want to do is I want to make the object origin, which is that little orange or yellow dot, and I want to put that right there. So what I can do is I can click on object, go to set origin, and then there's a bunch of different options. I'm going to set the origin to where the 3D cursor is. So click on that. Now when I press R to rotate and Z on the Z axis, you can see it's actually rotating by that cylinder. So let's press 7 for top view, G to grab, click with your middle mouse wheel. I'm just going to bring that over, and then period on the number pad to zoom into it, G and Z, and just bring this up. And if your wheel is a little too big like mine, you can just scale the whole thing down a little bit and then move it into place. That's pretty good. Maybe just scale a little bit bigger and then just bring this whole thing up because I don't want there to be that much space, just a little bit of space. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now when I rotate that, that looks good. So now we just need to duplicate these and put them all around. So this is pretty easy. Let's just select this, press 7 for top view, and we can go into wireframe and I can press Shift D, bring this over. Okay, and then R to rotate, and then Shift D to duplicate, bring this one over. And why I'm rotating it is because I just want to give it a random rotation, because those chairs those wheels just kind of move all the way around pretty randomly. So I'm just going to give them a random rotation to make it even more realistic. So again, Shift D, bring this over. Okay, R to rotate, and just give it a random rotation. Okay, now if we go out here, there we go. That is looking really good. All right, so now let's go ahead and make the seat that you're actually going to sit on. So I'm going to press Shift C again, center the 3D cursor, and then I'll press Shift A, and I'm going to add a cube. Let's tab into edit mode. I'm going to scale this cube down on the Z axis, just bring that down. I'll press 1 for front view, G to grab, click with my middle mouse, and just bring that down. Now, as far as the scale goes for the seat, I want it to end right where the wheels start. So you can see the wheels kind of start like right here. So I want to scale this up so that this is about where the wheels would start. So just about there. I think that proportion looks pretty good. Now, if I press 7 on the number pad for top view, I do want it to be a little bit smaller going back and forth. So I'll press S to scale, click with my middle mouse, and just make that a little bit smaller. And I'm going to make it about 2 grid width. So if I just zoom out here, you can see 1 grid, 2 grid. So just something like that is pretty good. Now, because this is a cushion or fabric, it needs to be kind of smooth. So I'm going to press Ctrl 2 to add a subsurf, and then we can just shade this smooth. Now, right now it's way too small, so we need to add loop cuts. So let's tab into edit mode. I'm going to press Ctrl R, click to add a loop cut there, and then just click again to place it. And then I can press S to scale and just bring that up to make it a little bit more lumpy and soft. And then I'm going to press Ctrl R, double click to add a loop cut there, Ctrl R, double click to add a loop cut there, just to kind of sharpen that up as well. And if you wanted to, you could select the whole thing and scale it up on the Z axis a little bit just to make it a little bit thicker. I don't want to make it too thick, but that's probably good. All right, and then I want to have the seat kind of go down a little bit. So I'll press 3 for the face select and just select one of the faces and then hold down the Shift key and select the other faces. We can now press I to inset them, bring them in, and then just press G and Z and bring them down a little bit. So now that cushion or that fabric seat is kind of going down a little bit. And then also on the subdivision levels, I think I'll just turn this up to 3, both of these, to make it look a little bit nicer. And then the bottom part, I think I want to sharpen that up just a little bit. So I'll press Ctrl R, click, and then bring that down just a little bit so that bottom piece is just a little bit sharper. All right, that's looking good. Now, real quick, I want to have like a little metal piece that's just connecting this to the cushion. So I'm going to press Shift C again, center the 3D cursor, Shift A, I'm going to add a cube. We'll just bring this cube down, scale it down here, just kind of scale it on the Z axis and bring it down. And then we can just scale it on the Y axis, so S and Y, and just make that a little bit longer. Okay, something like that. And then I want to smooth this out, so I can just tab into edit mode and press Ctrl B. Now, when I press Ctrl B, you may notice something. You can see that it's kind of like really long here, and then right down here, it's like really small. And why this is because we scaled this in object mode. So if you press N to open up the panel, you can see that this scale is all messed up, because we scaled in object mode. So now the bevel doesn't really know what to do. It's kind of messed up. So how we fix this, if I press N to close this, how we fix this is by applying the scale so that this is the new default scale. So to do that, press Control A, and we're going to apply the scale. Now if we tab into edit mode and press Control B, you can see that now that bevel looks even on either side. So just make a bevel there and then just shade that smooth in object mode, and there we go. Now we just have a little metal piece that's kind of connecting that to the cushion. And then I think this cushion, I want to make it just a little bit sharper, so I'll just press Ctrl R and then double click just to place one more loop cut right in there, just to make that a little bit sharper there. All right, so now we need to make the back of the chair. So let's press 3 for side view, Shift C again to make sure that 3D cursor is in the center there, and I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to add another cube. Let's scale the cube down, press G to grab, bring it over here, just scale it down. Let's tab into edit mode, and I'm going to scale it on the Z axis just bring it down a little bit. And then I'm just going to press Z, go into wireframe, A to deselect everything, and we'll just B and box select this piece. And then I'm going to press E to extrude, R to rotate, G to grab, and we're basically just making a little black part that comes up, and it's kind of like a plastic piece that will hold the back of the chair upright. And then if you're looking at this from the grid view, I want this to not quite be half a grid, so just almost half a grid. So let's just extrude this up, rotate it over, okay, and then extrude it up one more time. We don't want it to be too tall, just something like that. Okay, now this is really thin. We want to make it thicker so it's stronger, so tab into edit mode, select everything, and I'll press S to scale, click with my middle mouse to bring it on the X-axis, just thicken that up quite a bit, and then we can press Ctrl 2 to add a subsurf, shade the object smooth, and then we need to add some loop cuts again, so tab in edit mode, Ctrl R, add a loop cut, Ctrl R, add a loop cut there, and then also Ctrl R, add a loop cut there, and Ctrl R and add a loop cut right there. And then also I think right over here, let's add a Ctrl R, add another loop cut to sharpen that up, and Ctrl R, sharpen that up. Okay, so now we have a nice sharp piece there. That's looking really good. So now I want to make that back cushion. So I can actually use this same piece and then just kind of modify it to make it the shape that we want. So let's select that object and press 3 to go to side view. I'll press Shift D to duplicate, just bring it over here, and then R to rotate. And it's going to rotate by the pivot point, the object origin, that's fine. I'm going to type in 90 and then enter to rotate it by 90 degrees, so it's exactly up and down. And then I'll press G to grab and bring this over just like that. And then if you press 1 on the number pad to go to front view, the height that I want for this cushion, I want it to be about, the bottom of it is about the center of this drawer, or just like a little bit higher. So we need to actually make this a bit taller. So that is the size that I want. That's pretty good. We can adjust that later if we need to. But this object, tab into edit mode, Z for wireframe, A to deselect everything, B for the box select, just click and drag to select that, and then G and Z and bring that up, and then go back into object mode. There we go, now it's connected. All right, let's click on the back of the chair, tab into edit mode, and I just want to play around with the shape of it and make it look a little bit better for this piece. So one thing that I'm going to do is press Ctrl R and then double click to add a loop cut there, Ctrl R, double click to add a loop cut there. That way we have some more vertices and we can play around with the shape. Let's press 1 for front view, Z, move your mouse over to go into wireframe, and I'm going to press B, box select this, and press G and Z, bring it up. Okay, just bring that up a tiny bit, maybe box select this whole thing. G and Z, bring that whole thing up a little bit. And I'm doing this in wireframe because if I do this in solid view, if I just box select some of it, you can see it doesn't select the back of it. But if I do this in wireframe view, then when I box select an area, it's going to select all the front and the back. So that's why I'm going into wireframe view to do this. Okay, let's box select this top piece. G and Z, bring that up. And then maybe box select these. G and Z, bring that up. And then let's just box select that and box select that. G and Z will bring this down. And then I think I'll box select the entire thing, G and Z, and just bring that down a little bit. There we go. That's a better shape. I think I want to select these though. So just box select these vertices and scale them down. And I think I want to scale these down on the X-axis and then G and Z and bring that down a little bit. Okay, there we go. Kind of getting the shape that I want. Scale it, maybe scale the whole thing down just a little bit. And then we'll press G and Z and just push that in there and bring it over a little bit. Okay, there we go. That's the shape that I was looking for. All right, so that is exactly what I want. That looks pretty good. So now we need to go ahead and make the arm rests. So again, Shift C, center your 3D cursor. Let's press Control S to save our project again. Shift A, and we're going to add another cube. I'm just going to tab into edit mode and then press G and S. Make this smaller here. And then we can add modifier and add a mirror modifier. So that's mirrored over to the other side. And I'm just going to put this underneath it and scale it down a little bit. And just kind of stick it up inside the cushion. Now if we press 3 for the side view, we can just see how it's looking. I want it to be in the center there, so that's good. But I want it to be a little bit smaller and then a little bit wider. So S and Z, bring that down a little bit. And then S and Y, and just make that a little bit thicker. Just like that. Okay, 3 for the face select. I'm just going to select this face. We'll go 1 for front view, and I'm going to press E to extrude, R to rotate, G to grab, E to extrude, R to rotate, G to grab, and we're just going to make that side piece. Okay, and then E to extrude on the Z-axis, we'll just bring that up. Now this piece, I want to make it so it's about the same as this, so the bottom of that top cushion, I want to make that about the same, so that'll end right there. Okay, and then actually, I want to have this piece kind of scaling up a little bit at the end, so I'm actually going to press G and Z, bring it down, and then press E to extrude, make it that height, and then press S to scale, and kind of make that entire thing a little bit bigger. Also on side view, I can press S, click with my middle mouse wheel, and bring that up a little bit. There we go. That's looking good. Okay, Control 2 again to add a subsurf, and then let's shade this object smooth. Okay, and then again, we need to add loop cuts because it's kind of smoothed it all out. So tab in edit mode, Control R, we'll add a loop cut there. Control R, add a loop cut there. Control R, add one there and there. And then also Control R, we'll add one right up there. And back here, I think we might as well Control R, add a loop cut there. Okay, there we go. That's looking very good. So now we can go ahead and make that little like foam piece that your arms can actually rest on. So I'll press 1 to go to the front view. Shift C again to make sure that your 3D cursor is in the center. I'm going to press Shift A and add another cube. Tab in edit mode and G to grab. S to scale. Just kind of bring that in there, and then we'll press S and Z to kind of flatten that down. Bring that in there. Period on the number pad to zoom over to it. And I'm going to press S and click with my middle mouse wheel and pull that out. Let's press 3 to go to side view. And if you kind of zoom out to see the grids here, I want it to kind of be halfway in between both of these grids. So it's actually one grid length. So maybe just a little bit bigger, something like that. So you can see there is one grid, there is another grid. Just a little bit bigger than one grid. Okay, that's good. Let's go to front view. And I'm going to scale this down just a little bit. Okay, that's good. Now I want the sides of it to kind of be just sloping down a little bit. So I'm going to press Control R, scroll your mouse wheel out, and that's going to add 2 loop cuts instead of 1. And then you can just double click and just place that. Okay, I'm going to press 3 for the face select and just select this face. Hold down the Shift key, select this face, and then I'll press G and Z and just bring that down a little bit. Okay, and then let's press Control 2 again to add a subsurf, and we'll shade this object smooth. Now I'm going to press Control R, double click to add a loop cut right there. Press 1 for the vertex select, and I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and just select these top ones, and then I'll press G and Z. Just bring that up a little bit so that's just kind of coming up a little bit more. Now I want to make like a little seam in that kind of cushion for your arm. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, press Control R, click, and then just bring that up slightly. Press Control R again, click, and bring that one up very close. Okay. Then I'm going to press Control R to add loop cuts, and I'm going to scroll out so we have 2, and then just double click. So basically we have 4 loop cuts really close to each other. And then I'm going to press S and scale this one in. And also I think I need to press G and Z and bring it up a little bit and just scale it in. Okay, so now you can see basically what it's doing. And it looks like it's scaling it way more this way than it is in. So I think I'll scale that out. And then press S and X, bring that in a little bit. Okay, so that's really good. But it is very round here, so we need to add loop cuts. So I'm going to press Control R, add a loop cut there, bring this down, Control R, add a loop cut and bring that up. Now I think that there's a little bit too much space in here. So what I'm going to do is press 3 for the face select, hold down the Alt key and click right here, and that's going to select that entire loop of faces. And then I'll press G and Z, kind of push that down, and then go back into object node. There we go. That way they're just a little bit closer. All right, so now just select this, click on Add Modifier, and we will add the Mirror Modifier. All right, there we go. So the modeling is finally done. Just press Control S to save your project. Although we are going to have to add a plane on the ground, but that's pretty easy to do. It won't take very long. All right, so we can actually set up our scene now and do the lighting and the materials. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to press Shift A. And I'm going to go right down here to camera and just add a camera. Now what you can do, let's actually move the scene around a little bit. So I'm going to pull this back a little bit. Okay, so it's kind of closer. And then the chair, I'm going to have the chair kind of over here and kind of rotated towards it. You can do whatever you want. You can set it up however you want. I'm just going to move my view to right about here, and this is where I want the camera to be. So now what you can do is you can press Control Alt Numpad 0, and that's going to jump the camera to wherever you were. So now I can just select the camera by just clicking on that little thing there, and I can press G to grab, move it over. You can also press G and double tap Z to move it in or out, and I'm just going to pull it out a little bit. Okay, just give a little bit of space there for those objects. We need to kind of see everything. Okay, that's pretty good. So now I want to kind of move that chair around. So again, just press Shift-C to make sure your 3D cursor is in the very center there. I want to move the chair around, but to click on all the objects and then kind of move them, that would kind of take a while. And if I want to move it around later, I'd have to reselect all the objects. So I'm going to parent all of the objects to one object. So I'm going to press Shift-A. And I'm going to add an empty, and I'm going to add the sphere. Now this object, you won't see this in the render because it's, you can see the empty object. It doesn't have any faces, so you're not going to see it in the render. I can just scale this up, maybe move it down a little bit. And now what I can do is I can just select every single piece of the chair. So holding down the Shift key, select each piece, all of the legs and the wheels right there. Once I have that all selected, need to select a few more pieces. Once I have that, the entire chair selected, I can shift and click on this one last. So now this is the last object. It's the active object, and how you know that it's the active object is because it's selected yellow, whereas these are selected orange. So now that this is the last one, we want that to be the parent, so it's the last one selected. I'm going to press Control P, and I'm going to click on Set Parent to Object. So now if I just select this object and rotate it, scale it, or grab it, whatever we want to do, it's going to move along with it. So that is really good. And now I can just rotate this over and move it over, go into the camera view and just rotate this to whatever view you want. Just something that looks good for this scene, really, whatever you want to do. You could even duplicate it. If you duplicate it though, you're going to have to select all the objects, because if you duplicate just one object, it's not going to duplicate whatever's parented to it. Okay, that is good. I like how that is. That's looking really good. So let's save our project again. So now we need to add some lighting before we do the material. So at the beginning of the tutorial, I talked about that HDRI that I'm going to be using. So if you downloaded that or whatever HDRI you want to use, you can just add that in. So click on the world right here. We're going to click on the color, and I'm going to go right over here to environment texture. Then we can just click on open. And this is the HDRI that I'm going to be using. So it's the Empty Warehouse 01. It's the 1K version. Link will be in the description if you'd like to download the same one. So I'm just going to click on this and open image. Okay, so now that we open that, we can press Z and move our mouse up to go into rendered view. Now, before we do that, I only want to see what's being rendered in the camera view because I don't really need to see the other stuff. So I'm just going to press Control B in the camera. Make sure you're in the camera when you do this, and then just click and drag and then let go. Now there's that little red line around the camera, and when we press Z, move our mouse up and let go, it's going to go into rendered view and only render what's inside the camera view. All right, so that is looking pretty good, and I like the lighting. So let's go ahead and do some materials. First though, I think I want to add a ground plane. So let's just go out of rendered mode. I'm going to press Shift-C, center the 3D cursor, Shift-A, and I'm going to add a plane. We'll just scale the plane up, and then I can press 1 for front view, G and Z and bring it down. And I'm just going to put the plane right there so the table is resting on it. And it can be going through just a little bit, that's fine. Now it looks like the chair here needs to go up a little bit. And I think this chair probably could be scaled up a little bit. It seems like that would be a little bit better. So I'm just going to scale the entire thing up just a little bit. One thing I want to make sure though is if I were to move this chair inside there, like if someone was leaving their office, so they were pushing the chair in, I would want it to be able to fit inside the desk. So just make sure it can fit inside the desk. That seems pretty good. Just going to Control Z that. Okay, that is pretty good. And there we go. We can just barely see the wheels through the ground, so that's totally fine. Now the background here, I want to just have a plain white background. So I'm going to scale this up pretty big, and then I can press G and click with my middle mouse wheel, bring it over, and then G, click with my middle mouse, bring that over. So there we go. Now I want to kind of make this kind of have a backdrop kind of coming up. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, press Control R, add a loop cut right there. That's fine. And then if I press 2, 2 is going to go to the edge select, and I can just click right here to select the edge. You can also click right on here to go to the edge select. And then I can press G and Z and just bring this up. And you could also bring it over back a little bit. And that's a little bit too big. We don't really need it to be that high up. Just something like that. Now I can press Ctrl 2 to add a subsurf, and then we can just shade this object smooth. So now we need to add some loop cuts because it's kind of going through our object. So let's just press Ctrl R, click and drag, add a loop cut right there. Ctrl R, add another one, and then maybe Ctrl R, add another loop cut right there. We could also press Ctrl R, add another loop cut right there. So now we basically just have this backdrop for our scene. The camera here, we also need to move the camera up a little bit. So I'm going to select the camera by clicking on the border, G to grab, bring it up. Also, you can press G and then double tap Z to move it out a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's go into rendered mode, see how that's looking. It's really white right now, but we will fix that when we add the materials. All right, so let's go over to the shading tab. A couple more things before we add the materials. I want to turn this background object into a shadow catcher so that it only catches the shadows. And then in compositing, we can just add a white background or whatever background color you want to add. So to make this a shadow catcher, you can click right over here to the object properties, and then right down here on visibility, you can see that there is this shadow catcher. So if we go into rendered mode, right now it's white, just click on shadow catcher, and now you can see that it's only going to grab the shadows. It's a little bit hard to see, but there are those shadows right there. Now you can see the background, and we don't really want to see the background. We want it to be transparent so that we can add something in the back. So let's click right up here to the render properties, go down here to film, and then just click on transparent. Now the background is transparent, and when we render it, we can add a color in the background. But if you look right down here, you can see that it's still catching the shadows of those objects. Now this plain object, even though it's a shadow catcher, it still does kind of reflect the color that it is. So I'm just going to click on it, go to the materials tab, and I'm just going to click on new right here. And I can just call this ground. You can see if I go into rendered mode, because it's so white, it's just going to be reflecting tons of white. I actually just want to make it kind of a gray color. And you can see when I make it a gray color, the shadows are a little bit more gray. It's just not quite as reflective and bright. So that'll be a little bit better for our scene. So I'm just going to make that a gray color, and that's good. All right, so now let's go over to the shading tab right up here, and we can actually do all of the materials for our scene. So the first material that I'm going to make is that plastic material. So I'm just going to select one of the pieces of plastic, click on new. I'm going to call this plastic. And let me just go into rendered mode so we can see what this is looking like. If you want to preview a certain part of the scene, you can press Ctrl B in the camera view, and that way it's only going to preview a certain part of what the camera can see. So because I'm only working on this, I'm just going to box select that with Ctrl B in the camera view, and then we can just see that. So the base color, I'm going to turn this all the way down to black, and then the roughness, I'm going to turn this down a little bit, and that's pretty much it. It's a pretty basic material. Now I want this plastic material to be on a bunch of the other objects, so I'm just going to press Z and move my mouse down to go into the material preview, and then I can just drop this material onto the other objects. So what you do is you just click on this, drag it, and then drop it onto any material or any object that you want. And it's going to add that on. So I'm going to do it for this. I'm going to also do it for this piece and this piece. Every piece for the chair except the cloth pieces. So that one, and then also right behind there, that one right there. Okay, so that is good. Now if we go into rendered mode, you can see that the lighting could be more interesting. We could have some kind of like rim light or something, and it could look a lot cooler. So I'm going to add a brighter light to kind of lighten this up. So I'm going to press Shift A. And I'm going to go down here to light, and I'm going to add an area light. I'm just going to rotate this area light over, scale it up, bring it over, and then let me just rotate it, kind of bring it on the side here so that we can make sort of like a rim light, and then just scale this up, maybe rotate it over, just kind of have it pointing at our scene. Okay, let's go over here to the light settings. Now the power, the default is 10 watts. I'm going to go into rendered view here just to kind of see what it's looking like. I think I want this to be like 2000 watts. I know that's pretty bright, but you can see that now it adds that very nice rim light there onto the plastic. And then also you could just make it a very, very slight blue. Now before I forget this, we should make sure that this is set to filmic blender, and the filmic blender gives us more accurate colors and more accurate lighting, and it'll just make it look more photorealistic. It is subtle, but on a technical level it'll actually make it more realistic. So let's click right over here, go down here to the color management, and just make sure this is set to filmic. And then because filmic makes everything look a little bit kind of gray, the look here, I'm going to change this to high contrast, and that'll pop out the colors and make it look a little bit nicer. So now you can see that looks really nice. All right, so now let's go ahead and do those metal handles. So I'm going to click on one of the handles, click on new. We can just call it metal or handle or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to turn the metallic all the way up to 1, and that way it's treated as a metal material. So metallic all the way up to 1. I'm going to turn the roughness down a bit so it's more shiny. And then the base color, I'm going to turn this down to kind of like a gray color. If I just box like that and zoom in there, you can see now that looks like a nice shiny metal material. I might turn the roughness down a little bit and then play around with the color. That looks pretty good. Okay, now I want to put that on all the other handles. So again, I can just drag it and drop that color onto the other handles. Some of the handles you can't see here, so just drop it on. Okay, let's press Ctrl S to save our project again. Now we just have 2 more materials to do. So we have that wood material and then the cloth material. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to select this, click on new, and I'm going to call it wood. And then I'm going to be using the Node Wrangler add-on. If you don't have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, you can go edit and then go to preferences. And then right over here on the add-ons, you can just search on the add-ons here, just search for Node and then turn on the Node Wrangler add-on. So it's built into Blender, so it should be there. So now just close this once you've checked it and we can use it. So I'm going to use a few different features of the Node Wrangler. The Node Wrangler has a few different features and tools. One thing that I'm going to do is automatically add in the textures that we're going to be using. So at the starting of the tutorial, I showed you the wood texture that I'm going to be using. If you want to download the same one, the link is in the description. So to automatically add those textures into our material, we can just select the principled and then press Ctrl-Shift-T. And so when you press Ctrl-Shift-T using the Node Wrangler add-on, that's going to bring up this file browser, and then you can just go to wherever you've downloaded the textures. So if you've downloaded the same textures that I've downloaded, then you're going to need to extract the zip file, and then you'll have these textures. So I'm just going to use the color, the normal, and the roughness. We're not going to be using the displacement because we really don't need to use that. So I'm going to click on this, hold down the Control key and click on this one, and then this one. And now that we have all those 3 maps, we're going to click on Principled Texture Setup. And when we do that, you can see that it automatically adds in all the textures properly, and it sets up our material how it should. Now, if you're still somewhat of a beginner to Blender and you don't actually know how to properly set up materials, then I would definitely recommend watching some tutorials and learning about how to properly set up texture maps. But because I do this pretty much every day, I know how to properly set up materials, and I know why Blender did this. I know like what all these things do. And so I think it's important to understand the fundamentals of how you set up a material. So again, if you're a beginner, I think it would be a good idea to learn the fundamentals of how to set up materials. But because I do this every day and I know how to use this, I just use that add-on and it works really well. And it speeds up my workflow. All right, so that does look pretty good, except that the texture is really stretched. So we're going to have to UV unwrap the objects to make the scale correct, because like this is really stretched and there's a lot of issues here. First though, I'm going to just drag and drop the wood texture onto these pieces right here. So now we can go ahead and UV unwrap this object. Now before we UV unwrap it, I did notice that if I go back into layout here, you can see that when we applied the mirror modifier, it still has these pieces here, and we really don't need this. So I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select, and then just Alt select this loop. And then I'm just going to press X to delete, and I'm going to dissolve edges. And when I do that, you can see that it's gotten rid of that extra loop in there, but it still keeps the shape of the object. So we'll just do that one more time. Alt select this, X, and we're going to dissolve edges, and there we go. Now we just don't have those extra pieces that we don't need. So now let's just shift select all of the wood objects. So this one, this one, this one. If you can actually select them around the lights and everything. There we go. So now we have all those wood pieces selected. Let's go to the UV editing, and it's going to throw us into edit mode. And we're in multi-object editing, so we're actually editing all of the objects together. So now what you can do is just select everything and press U, and we are going to do the Smart UV Project. So this works really well for objects like this. This object is very cubic and square, so this works really well. We don't need to like manually UV unwrap it. We can just do the Smart UV Project, and Blender is going to do its best UV unwrapping it itself. And then just click on OK, and you can see that now it just kind of puts it all around. And if we go into rendered mode or just go into the material preview, you can see that looks a lot better. So we don't have any stretching or anything like that. The texture is way too big. So if we tab into edit mode, make sure this is selected, and then move your mouse over here. We can press A to select the UV map. We can press S and scale it up. And if we scale it up, you can see that the texture is going to be smaller because here is the wood texture that we added into Blender. So let's just scale this up, and we can just scale up that UV map and just kind of take a look at it and make it the size that you want. That looks pretty good. I'm good with that. I think that looks pretty good. That's a good size. Now there are a few things to look at because you can see that the grain of the wood, like right here, is going kind of up and down. But then this one over here, this front piece is kind of going sideways. So I want to kind of rotate these and make them look a little bit better because it doesn't make sense that this piece, the grain would be going up, and then next to it, the same piece, the grain would be going sideways. Most of it looks pretty fine, but there's just a few places like that that I want to rotate the texture. So to do this, I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press A to deselect everything. I'm going to press 3 to go to the face select, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key and select this right here. And it's going to select all those pieces around, and we don't need to select the slots in there because they are going up. So now what I can do, you can see that when I have this selected, whatever the UV map is for that mesh, it's going to be on the other side too. So now I can press R to rotate, and I can type in 90 and enter. And you can see now that the grain is going up and down instead of side to side. So that looks really good. Let's do that for this piece right here. So just deselect everything, Alt select this, and then R to rotate, 90 and enter. And there we go. Okay. And then let's go over here to the back. Yeah, you can see that the back here, this piece is going up and down. I like that. But this piece is going to side, and I don't really think that makes sense. I think it would be going up and down, especially since this piece is going up and down. So I'm going to tab in edit mode, just select these two faces, and then R to rotate, 90 degrees, enter. There we go. Now that piece is going up and down as well. So just look around your object. If you need to rotate anything, you can do that. But I think that looks pretty good. Okay, let's go back into the shading tab, see how that's looking. I'm just going to go into rendered mode here. We can just see how that's looking. Really nice. Now this wood, the color is pretty strong, and I feel like it would look a little bit better if the color was just a little bit desaturated and a little less red. It just seems pretty strong right now. So what I'm going to do right here in the shading tab is press Shift A, and I'm going to search for RGB curves. I'm just going to click on this and drop the RGB curves in between the base color and the base color right here. And this way we can actually edit the colors. So I can just click on this and just place that in there so it's wired it up. This is the base color. You can see if I bring this out, it says wood color. So this is the color map. It's this map right here, and that's going into the color for the principled. So I can just do a few things. I want to make it maybe a little bit darker, so I'll just drag this down. It's going to make a little tab there, just drag that down. The C is going to be the brightness, so if you make it way down, it's going to be darker, just something like that. And then I feel like it's a little bit too red right now, so if I click on this one, that's R is for red. I can just drag this down and make that, just desaturate that just a tiny bit, just because it was a little bit strong. So I think that looks a lot better. All right, so we are almost done. We just need to do the other material here. So I'm just going to select this, just maybe box select that so we can just preview that. I'm going to click on new, and we're going to call it fabric. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing. So with this principled BSDF selected, I'm going to press Control Shift T. And then again, it's going to bring up the file browser. So just select the color and then hold down the control key and select the normal, and then continue to hold down the control key and click on the roughness. Those are the maps we want, just the color, normal, and roughness. We don't need the opacity. That's for if you want to like make the cloth transparent, like be able to see through it. And then the displacement, that is another thing just to kind of make it bump out even more. We're not going to be using the displacement. So just the color, normal, and roughness, and then click on Principled Texture Setup. And again, it's going to automatically set up the material, and then we can just click on this and drop it onto here. Okay, so let's go into Render Preview, take a look at this. So you can see that just like this object, we need to UV unwrap this object because it's kind of stretched, like it's bigger here and it's smaller here. So yeah, we need to UV unwrap this. So what I'm going to do for this object is I'm going to add seams, and then we are going to UV unwrap it. So if you remember with this object, you don't need to follow this. If I just go into edit mode and go over here to the UV editing, you can see that what it's done is it's basically taken this 3D object and it's flattened it out into these squares right here. And then that way, these can be placed on this texture, and because the texture is seamless, it'll just go out forever and these sides are going to merge together. And so now, because it's taken this 3D mesh and kind of flattened it down, it can now know where and how it's going to place the texture onto the object, because this is flat. Obviously, this is a 2D image, but then this is 3D. So that's why we need to UV unwrap objects, because we need to tell it how the 2D image is going to be placed on the 3D texture. So what we need to do is we need to make seams. So we're basically cutting out this object and then we're flattening it out. So let's add seams and then we'll UV unwrap this. So what I'm going to do is go into edit mode here. I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select, and I want to add a seam around here. So hold down the Alt key, select this loop, okay, so that we can cut out that top piece, so that top piece can be flat, and then go down here. I also want to select this loop, so Alt select that loop, so that's going around there, so that we can cut out the bottom piece as well. Now this piece around here, the side, we need to cut that so that it can kind of open up as a flat strip. So if I go to the back here, I'm going to press Z, move my mouse over to go into wireframe, and I'm going to click on this vertice right here. So that way, when we add a seam there, then this piece can be opened up and be a flat strip. Okay, so that's what I want to do. So make sure you have all that selected. And then once that's selected, you're going to press U, and U is going to open the UV mapping settings, and we're going to click on Mark Seam. So when we click on Mark Seam, you can see that it's added this orange here, and we can now deselect that. And you can see that it's added those seams right there on the top piece and on the bottom piece, and then right there. So now if we select this entire thing and press U and click on the normal unwrap, you can see that now it's cut out the top piece. So this one right here, it's also cut out the bottom piece, this one down here, and then it's taken this strip around here, and because we cut it right there, it's flattening it and opening it up, and here's the cut, so it's opening that up. So that is just what we want. So now let's go ahead and do that same thing for the other piece. I'm just going to select this, tab into edit mode. I'm going to press A to deselect everything. We'll hold down the Alt key and select this loop. Okay, hold down the Shift and Alt key and select this loop, and then we can just go down here, press Z, go into wireframe, and just hold down the Shift key and select that vertice. Okay, so now we have that all selected. Press U to bring up the UV mapping settings, and we're going to click on Mark Seam again. And then that looks all good. We're going to double tap A and press U, and then click on Unwrap, just the normal unwrap. And there we go. You can see that it's cut out the top piece, the bottom piece, or that's the top piece. I think that's the bottom piece. And then it's also cut out that side strip and kind of open that up. So now if I go into the material preview, you can see what that's looking like, but that is way too big because the strands of cloth are very, very small. So I'm going to shift select both of these objects, tab into edit modes that were in the multi-object editing, and you can see that now we can see both of the UV mapping. Let's press A to select everything, and then I can press S and scale this way up. And because this is cloth, it's going to be very, very high detail. So I'm just going to scale this up really big, something like that. Yeah, maybe a little bit smaller. Go into the camera view, kind of see how it's looking, but cloth is very detailed, so it should be pretty small. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that looks good to me. Let's press Control S again to save that. I'm going to go back to the shading tab, and let's just go into rendered mode and see how that's looking. Now, this cloth here, I feel like it's a little bit dark, so again, we can just edit the colors to make it a little bit brighter. So I'm going to press Shift A here, search for the RGB curves node again, and we're going to drop that in between the base color for the cloth and the principled. So just drop it right there, and then we can just drag this up and just kind of make that a little bit brighter. You can see now that just looks a little bit better. It's a little bit brighter. I think that looks a lot better. All right, now this light here, I really like it, but I also want it to be on the other side. So if I just go back to layout here, zoom out, I can select the light and press Shift D to duplicate and R to rotate. Click on the Z for the Z axis and just kind of rotate it over because I thought it would be nice if there was another light, just kind of brightening up the whole scene. Just kind of rotate it, get it how you like. And we are ready to finally render out the final scene and then just do a little bit of compositing. One last thing I forgot to add in the tutorial, I'm just going to throw this in the editing. I forgot to open up the drawers, so if you just want to select the drawers, press G to grab and just move them out. I just moved a couple out like this, and I think that looks pretty cool, just to kind of show that the drawers are open. There we go. You can just do that. I forgot to add this in the tutorial, so there we go. Just do that for the final image if you'd like to. So if that looks all good to you, then just go File and Save again, or just press Ctrl S, and then you can press F12 to render out the final image. All right, and the render is finished, and I rendered this on the sampling here. I rendered this with 100 samples. I think that looks fine. It does look a little bit noisy, but in Blender's compositor, we're going to be using the denoise node to smooth that out. So I just used 100 samples. All right, so now that that is finished, let's go right over here to the compositing tab. You might need to scroll over and then click on the compositing tab, and let's click on Use Nodes. Now, this, I don't need this because I'm not doing animation, so I'm going to click, drag up, drag down, and then let go. Okay, we'll just bring this out. Now again, using one of the features from the Node Wrangler add-on, I can press Control and Shift and hold down the Control and Shift key at the same time and then click on this node. And it's going to add the viewer node. So we can actually preview what the composite is looking like behind us. Now, if for some reason you don't see this, you may need to click on the backdrop, and that way you can see what's behind us. Now, if this is a little bit too big or a little bit too small, to change the background and move it around, you can press V to zoom the background in, Alt V to zoom the background out, and then if you just hold down the Alt key and middle click, that's going to move this around. So now let's just do a little bit of compositing and make this final image look really nice. So I'll press Shift A, and I'm going to first add the denoise node. So just search for denoise, click, and then I'm just going to drop it right down here in between the connection of the render layers and the composite, so it'll denoise it before it finally composites it into the final image. Now we want to be able to see the denoise, so I'm going to click right here and wire this up to the viewer, and then we can preview what that's seeing. Okay, that looks good, and it denoised it, so now it looks a lot smoother. If you wanted to render it with a little bit higher samples, you might want to do that because some of these places just look a little bit cloudy. You can kind of see right in there. It's a little bit cloudy. So if you wanted to render that with a little bit more samples, I think I'll do that right at the end. Like right there, it looks a little bit smudged, and also maybe down there. Yeah, it looks a little bit smudged there. So I'll probably render that with a little bit more samples. All right, so now I want to add a white background or a gray background, whatever color you want to add. So to add this, I'm going to press Shift A. I'm going to search for an alpha over node. Click on this and drop this right in here. And then the image, I actually need this to be onto the bottom one. So just drag the image to the bottom one. And then this one right here, this one is going to be whatever color you want. So I think that maybe like just a light gray actually looks pretty nice. And because we have that shadow catcher, you can see that it still has the shadow, but we can make it whatever color you want. So you can really make it whatever color. I'm just going to make it kind of a gray color. I think that looks pretty nice. All right, and then the last thing you could do is just color correct this if you want to. So my two favorite nodes for color correction are, if you press Shift A, the color balance right here. If you want to drop this right in there, you can do some color balance. And I also like to use the RGB curve. So just add the RGB curves. Okay, I'm actually not going to use the color balance in this tutorial, but you could definitely use this one if you wanted to. So I'll just delete that. So if I just give myself a little bit of space to see, something that I like to do is pull this up just a little bit. And then if I just click down here to add another one, I can bring that down, and that slight curve is going to make the colors really contrasty. And I think that it looks really nice. And then I think adding just a little bit of blue might look a little bit nice. So I'm going to click on the B right here. That's going to add the blue. And if I just click and drag and kind of pull that up this way, it's just going to add a tiny bit more blue to the image. And I think that looks pretty nice. Okay, so just to make the final render now, I'm just going to turn this to 200 because I think it doesn't have quite enough samples. So I'll just render that at 200, press Ctrl S again to save, and then you can press F12 or go render and then click on render image. All right, and there we go. There is the final image. So if you were in the compositor, if I just escape out of this, if you were in the compositor, what you can do is just click F11 and that'll go to the final image. And then what you can do is from the render result, you can click on viewer node and then you can see the final image. So to save this image, you can go image and then just click on save as. Just save this somewhere on your computer. I'm going to save it as final render and just save that as a PNG image. That is great for me. So there we go. There is the finished tutorial. This has been quite a long tutorial. My screen recording software has been going for 2.5 hours. So that's pretty long tutorial. So this has been a pretty long tutorial, but I hope it was helpful and I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned a lot and made a very cool image. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And again, if you'd like to help support me and also get the project files for my tutorials, you can do that over on my Gumroad and Patreon. The links will be in the video description. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in a future video.